Welcome to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by Haven, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Haven Hubcast. I'm your co-host, Nancy Sheed, and I am very excited to be here today with Eileen Springer. She is the founder of Central Park Executive Coaching. Eileen's going to dive in and tell us a little bit about her journey from Fortune 500 companies to her current role. But know that she has done the gamut from the Fortune 500 in HR to now working with leaders and executives at all levels and stages of their business. She provides HR advisory services. She does talent assessments, organizational design, talent acquisition and succession, planning and leadership. So the whole gamut in terms of helping people and or helping the people who help the people on their career journey. So welcome, Eileen. We are excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Eileen, we were just talking about you're now running your own business and sharing your expertise, sort of in the form of your own business and consulting, but that's not where you started out. So could you touch upon sort of the path that got you here?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. I spent about 30 years having a career in human resources, and I held a variety of leadership roles in HR as both a subject matter expert and a generalist. But throughout the course of my career, I really became known for my expertise and talent. And the last half of my career in human resources was focused on leading large organizations and integrated talent management, which incorporated talent acquisition, talent management, and learning and development with a specialized focus on leadership development. So I worked in 3 industries, in financial services, technology, and hospitality for 3 large organizations. And I'd always been interested in executive coaching and had responsibility for managing coaching programs in the companies that I worked for. So I got to see what made for a good coach or a bad coach and the impact that coaching could have on one's career. Although I've always taken a rather conservative approach to managing my own career, because I like the security of a regular paycheck, I had a transformational experience in about a day. My company sponsored me for a year-long program at Columbia University for a certification in executive coaching. And literally in my first day there, I decided it was time to jump in.
Wow, that wasn't even a slow progression.
It was not. And certainly not the way I would typically behave, but it really felt right. So I jumped in, and as part of my research at Columbia, I was researching the preferences of millennials in coaching and conducted a focus group with young adults and their parents because I felt there was a gap in the market for offering coaching to people early in their career. And by the end of the night, I had my first 3 clients.
Wow.
Yeah. So
always do market research. Always do market research, right?
Exactly. So I wasn't intending to make that a specialty in my practice, but it is part of my practice. I primarily coach executives, but I'm also taking on clients who are early in career, as well as I do group coaching. I do a lot of coaching with a C-suite women's networking organization called Chief, as well as I'm an affiliate coach with a couple of consulting firms where I'm coaching executives who are newly promoted. And I have individual clients who want a partner during a transition or people who are considering some sort of transition and want support in that process.
Fantastic. So it sounds like you still got a bit of the generalist, but you're getting a little more specific in terms of your areas of expertise or where you've, sort of can see the most transformation for your clients.
Yes, that's right.
And the world of coaching, to me, it seems like or to others may, seems like it may exploded, but you're letting us know that actually it's been around for a while. It's just sort of now no longer just for, C-suite executives, right? Everybody could use a coach to help them at whatever, sort of stage in their life.
Yes.
Tell me what you're seeing, Eileen, in terms of as we're coming out of the pandemic, we're hearing about a lot of people having used this sort of very, different time for all of our lives to do some introspection, thinking about what they want out of life, what they want to give back, how they can best show up. What is that looking like to you and your clients and what you're seeing?
Yes. And Nancy, I like the way that you frame that around introspection. I think that's one of the biggest outcomes from COVID is that people at all stages of career, for many, the first time in their life, had a lot of time for introspection. And we're spending a lot of time examining how they were working, why they were working, what was the meaning of that. So executive coaching has actually been booming since people have been spending so much time at home, and particularly since they've been working from home. So I'd say the first trend that we're seeing now and that everybody's talking about is this concept of the Great Resignation. There is a tremendous amount of movement happening at all levels in organizations. And the big focus for employers is trying to retain employees. Because as you can imagine, there's a huge expense associated with employee turnover, recruiting new employees, training new employees, and all the institutional knowledge that walks out the door when people leave. And the big question is why? Why is this happening? Why are so many people resigning? And there isn't one reason for all. It's a variety of reasons, depending on individuals, depending on stage of career. But we do see a lot of employees, because of all of that introspection, decide that they want more meaning from their work. And they've reframed what work means to them. Some people simply feel it's time for advancement, that they were stuck in place during the pandemic, and now it's time to move upward. Some people feel extremely burned out from how hard they've been working the past couple of years, in addition to, those that may be trying to manage more duties at home as well as their work. Whether it's taking care of elderly parents, taking care of small children, or not having the same kind of support with their home life that they did prior to the pandemic. Some individuals are moving because they felt ignored during this time. Working remotely may not have worked well for them because they may not have had a management team that knew how to manage well remotely. Some people don't want to go back to the office, and a lot of companies are now asking employees to come back to the office. Some may have moved away during the pandemic while they were working remotely and don't want to move back. Some want more money. Some want to feel safe, especially if they were in healthcare or a frontline worker. Some people don't want to commute any longer. Some people can't get childcare. Some people can't get pet care for all those COVID puppies. The list goes on and on. So if you really started to get in the details as to why are we having this, it's so many reasons, and they differ for different individuals.
And as you're thinking that through, I'm sure that for some people, there's the combination of I'm stuck and I've moved and I have a dog, right?
Exactly.
It's not necessarily any one of those reasons. There are probably several powerful ones. I liked how you said, Eileen, at all levels. So to me, I'm hearing you say that that's from entry level to, the executive suite, and that's to the 20-something-year-old to the 50-year-old person, right?
Yes.
This isn't just one age group that we're seeing do this. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Absolutely. And I'm also seeing it with people who are hourly workers, as well as people who are exempt employees and operating at the professional level. All workers are looking for something different or something more. It's very rare right now, if you talk to someone at any level, that they're perfectly content where they are. They may feel that they're not empowered to make a change right now, or they may be working in excellent environments and they're aware of the fact that they're in good environments. But other than that, people are moving around.
Interesting. So I'm going to make the assumption that most of our listeners are on the employee side or
Mhm.
are in the career transition side or are considering that. I know you also work with HR departments, but
Yes.
I'm going to sit on the side of the table for those who either are considering or are in the middle of or are on the other side of maybe this great resignation, this introspection, this, next step. Are there some, I don't want to make this easy because I know everybody's very different, but are there some basic either questions you ask them to ask themselves, or are there some basic principles that you like for them, while they're considering what to do, where to go? I don't want to oversimplify this, but, are there some just
Yeah.
sort of basic baby steps one can take or think about or act upon if this is going on in their world?
Absolutely. And that's a great question, Nancy. And a big reason why a lot of individuals seek out a coach to work with them during this process. And one of the first things I will typically explore with a client is what is it about where they are that isn't working for them? How much of that is within their control and not within their control? Oftentimes, workers have more in their control where they currently are than they believe they have. Sometimes it's as simple as having the right language to be able to have the conversation with your boss and to be able to know the right way of how to ask for what it is that you want and what you need. And other times it's, quite literally people are looking at all these job postings and think that there are millions of other jobs out there that sound fabulous, but they don't necessarily realize that just because something's posted, oftentimes it isn't real, or that they may or may not be qualified for it. And, help people through that process of exploring what's realistic, what's real. How do you go through the exploration process of finding out what a different role or being part of a different organization actually looks like? Oftentimes, conceptually, something can sound really attractive, particularly if you're dissatisfied where you are. But when you get into the reality of what it's really like, it's a lot less appealing. So
I like that.
that's a
I'm making
first
notes over
step.
here. But I mean, I feel like there's 3 steps in there, right? Like what's in your
Yes.
control? Let's truly explore and visit reality versus the grass is always greener on the other side. So
Yes.
I think they're micro steps in that first step alone.
Yes. Another thing I should mention is, and I've seen this a lot during COVID, oftentimes people start to feel very antsy and ready for a change because there's been so much sameness across their whole life, particularly since lockdown, and feelings of alienation. So, oftentimes, when I'm starting with a new client, we'll do some assessments. And these may be assessments that will measure thinking styles or preferences to help people, again, discover at a deeper level where their interests and preferences really lie and how that does or doesn't match with their current career, or where they may be able to make adjustments to find that and to derive more satisfaction from their work.
I love that. I love that because sometimes it's actually just affirming to have those assessments in front of you and have you, sort of smack the head and go, well, of course, now this explains why I do this. Or, oh my gosh, my staff would totally agree with this because, I think there's some power in that getting it out of your head and having it reflected back to you, the good, the bad, and the ugly in those assessments.
Exactly.
Eileen, if somebody is actually, let's say moving through these steps with you and making the change and making a change, are there steps, again, in terms of empowering them and or starting off on the right foot we've made a big leap here that they've found something else or they're on that path to making something else. How does one start off on the right foot so that they don't end up in the same situation, 4 years from now, 3 years from now, I don't even 2 years from now, where they're sort of like, oh, I wish I'd known this or I wish I'd done something differently before they start out on this next adventure.
Yes. Whenever my clients land in a new position, I always then give them a gift, which is a great book called The 90-Day Plan. Or it's called The First 90 Days, actually. And I do think it's very important to prepare for the first few months of a job and to be deliberate about how you're going to be planful in settling into a new role. And I also am a big believer, whether it's for the job search or starting a new role, never underestimate the power of a network. And building that network early on in a new role is equally important.
I'm a huge fan of building networks, but I find that some people kind of freak out about that word, like
Yes.
network and networking. So
Yes.
I like to sort of also talk about community, right? And or building your people or your team isn't quite the right word, but I think that makes sense, and I think it is truly. It's a less measurable thing, but sometimes one of the most powerful things, I think, that people don't consider.
I've never had a client that told me they like to network. So, one of the first things I do, particularly if they're in job search, is help them to reframe what that means, to find a way for them to make it an enjoyable experience so that it doesn't feel like networking.
I love that. I might be one of the few people that tells you I do like networking, but
Yeah.
but I'm realizing that's an anomaly. But that's a great segue, Eileen, into Haven and the co-working space, the community, that brings you and I together. It's how we've met, and I just would be curious to sort of hear how you found the Haven community, or how you've been how the Haven community has supported you, or vice versa. I love exploring this in terms of it means something different to everybody I've talked to.
Yeah, Haven has really been a phenomenal experience for me, particularly since COVID. Prior to the lockdown, I had an office in New York City that I was working out of. I was seeing all of my clients in person, and overnight, I was spending 8 hours or more a day on Zoom with the same four walls, sitting in my little office at home. And after a few months, I was like, this really isn't working for me. And I had previously met Felicia, who founded Haven, and called her up and said, are you reopened yet? I happened to have called her the day after she reopened, and she was like, well, that's funny. I just opened my doors. And I said, do you have an office for me? Because I'm coming. But what's been great about Haven for me is that I find spending a few days a week here keeps me structured. I know I get a lot of my energy from being around other places, other people, as well as having, another space to go to. So I just love the energy that I get from the people here and the support from others that I get. I find this is a community that promotes creativity, connection. I'm part of a mastermind group here. That's a group of other coaches, whether they're leadership coaches or health coaches. It's amazing how many ideas you can get from people in adjacent spaces. And I also find that this is a community that supports the professionalism of my brand. So whether I'm meeting clients here or networking with others, it just brings a different layer of professionalism over being an entrepreneur and being in your own business. I've also found it to be quite convenient to be part of this community. So, like last year, I bought all of my holiday gifts at the holiday fair they had here. And one of the other members owns a bridal salon down the street. So when my daughter got engaged, I went to only one place to find her wedding gown.
And we talked to Ashley, and we actually talked to Ashley in another episode. So I'll put the show notes for if you need to know that recommendation. Talk about connecting.
Exactly.
So we know who you're talking about.
And she's just fabulous. And there's a caterer that was catering lunches here who I wound up hiring for a party at my house. I bought my fall wardrobe from a fashion curator who is another member here. So I just find it's very convenient being part of a community like this with so many talented people.
Oh, I love that. I love how you've actually literally connected the dots. And I think also your comment about the professionalism, I think as I would assume you're seeing, hopefully the workplace is shifting and we're shifting out of this scarcity, lack, competitive space. And I think what I'm hearing you say, and I think strongly feel about Haven is Haven's a place of abundance and you can always grow. And as you said, you can have people that are in your space and it's how do we all make the world a better place or how can we all make our businesses better? It really is that place where 1 + 1 equals so much more than 2. And I love the way you brought that all together.
Yes, well said.
Eileen, so for people who want to find you if you're not physically sitting in your Haven offices, what's the best way for people to connect with you, learn more, or be in touch? And I'm sure you put out probably a lot of great content. So how can we direct them to you?
Yes. They can visit my website at centralparkexecutivecoaching.com. And you can also reach me by email at eileen@centralparkexecutivecoaching.com.
Fantastic. We will put those in the show notes. Thank you again, Eileen, for your time and for all of us in the midst of the Great Resignation. Thank you for giving us a little inspiration about how we can continue on our journey. And I have a feeling, Eileen, we'll come back and be talking to you again soon to sort of see where people are landing and how we're continuing to come out of COVID. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Nancy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Haven is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. Haven is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the Haven community online at haven.com. That's HAYVN.com. Haven Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.